Here we are talking about helicopters again.
So, welcome to Sky Talk.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Today we have James and Matt here, owners of Rogue Aviation.
Aviation.
I was just going to say, yeah, we are the new aviators.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Awesome.
And I met James through a friend who flew with you on the
What
Robinson
friend was
course.
that? I forget.
Christina.
Oh, it was Christina.
Yeah. And she told me about the school that started in California. It was just like a couple of years prior to when I applied for a job. 'Cause how many years have you had it now?
We are now on, well, let's see here. I think we're starting our 8th now. Matt, what year were your kids born?
2017. We
There you
started
go.
October of 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I had twins, and then a week later we started Rogue Aviation, which
Yeah.
my wife greatly appreciated.
yeah, you were like,
Let's-
I have all this time on my hands now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had
got
a
2 kids.
6-month-year-old
Yeah.
at that time,
A
too.
6-month-year-old.
I mean, a 6-month-old.
Wonderful.
Yeah, okay, so while we're talking about how did you come up with like starting a school?
Well,
you want to take that one?
We'll leave names out of it, but I've had a lot of unfortunate experiences through my schooling that I went to, worked for. My very first school that I started at, a lot of people know this story, was Silver State Helicopters, and probably about 4 months into my training, 4 or 5 months into my training. In fact, Super Bowl Sunday, which we just passed, about a month ago, I got a phone call like 5:30 in the morning from my instructor saying, "Hey, don't come in. School's closed." And I was like, "What? What do you mean school's closed? Like, did something happened today?" Like, no, it's closed. It's done. And I was like, the first thing I was like, where'd all my money go? And I was at the
Because you
time.
paid up front?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, at the time, like most people that are looking to start this endeavor, it's expensive. There's no ways around that. I mean, we're operating expensive equipment. There's a lot of hours involved into getting all the license and ratings. And when I found this particular school, Silver State, not having this information or just being new in aviation, not knowing where to navigate, what questions to ask. What was cool about them was for $75,000, I could get all my ratings and have all the hour requirements that I needed, which, as a lot of us know, especially if you're teaching in Robinson, you need a minimum of at least 200 hours to be able to instruct in Robinson helicopters. And so that kind of made sense. That was something I could at least budget. I mean, yeah, I knew I had to take a loan. That was still going to be a lot to pay back. And
It was a good package deal.
Yeah, it was a good package deal, And I was about it was I'll save all the back and forth of getting through the loan process, but that probably should have been a little bit of a warning that something was up. But I didn't know. I just thought that was a process, And I had already had about $50,000 that was dispersed to my school. They had it all. I didn't have a lot of training. It was always busy, or there wasn't enough instructors. And I spent a lot of time in a little simulator, tons of sim time. I mean, I was a sim champ. And by that point, when I got the notice that they shut down, I just barely learned how to hover. And all of us who know what it's like to hover realize how difficult that is, and just how frustrating, and how long and even just expensive it'll be just to learn to hover. So you already feel like you're behind the game. And $50,000. I was about to have my last $25,000 dispersed because they had, it was in the contract, the schedule of disbursements and whatnot. And that was my first thought. Like, where's all my money? And pretty much was
Gone.
Done. Donezo.
And you're like, welcome to aviation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it was going to be gone, just, not overnight like that. And so that was my first experience in aviation, was losing $50,000. Thankfully, that same year.
You were like,
Yeah.
let's
It's
continue
just
doing
getting you prepared
Yeah.
for.
Get ready. Everyone's going to steal your money. Thankfully, that same year, I got a knock on the door Christmas Eve, and it was from the postman. Pretty late at night, too. I was like, man, these postal guys really do work all the time. I mean, Christmas Eve, knocking on my door.
It's like a movie.
Yeah, and it was a certified letter. I had to sign from, like, what the heck am I getting? I was like, ooh, Christmas gift, And it was actually, at the time, my lender was Citibank, and it was basically them releasing me of all financial liability.
Oh, nice.
So that was a good ending to that part.
Nice
but
Christmas gift.
It was a very good Christmas gift, the best Christmas gift ever, I think. Until I get a helicopter for Christmas, of course, but still waiting on that. So that was my very first experience in aviation. But, pretty quickly got back on the saddle, found another school. LA Helicopters was that next school.
Or you didn't pay up front?
Well, actually, I did find another lender. It was through Sally Mae, which to date, I'm still paying that off. I mean, that's just how it is. If you don't have the cash up front, you got to find a way to make it happen. And that was dispersed, similarly. But it wasn't, it was a much easier process. By this point, knew all the right questions, and there was a good history with Sally Mae at the time that I was aware of, and so thankfully I was able to get that. Finished all my training there. Got really good training through them. In fact, I still, work with the chief pilot at the time of LA Helicopters, and he's now one of my bosses at Robinson Helicopters, which I get to work with as well. That was kind of a little dream job that I had. And after I finished, I went to another school. No guidance, no structure, no anything, and didn't like that fit, which led me into the school that I worked for previously before we started here. And
I was your first student, right?
you were my first student.
I was his first student.
like numero uno, and it was first student at that school. I had some students before that.
Yeah.
I wasn't too much of a noob then, but we'll leave that name out of it. But it was they had a really good thing going in the beginning, and that's why I went there. There was a lot of alignment with how aviation should be fun. It shouldn't be so serious, and not to say overly structured, but because people do need structure. Mm-hmm. But it was a good environment. They really believed in sharing the story of aviation and trying to reach out to communities, and social media was becoming more of a popular thing. So they were really involved in a lot of the social media platforms, and things are going, I don't know, I would say great in the beginning. I mean,
yeah, I think the problems there were, I got my license there, and that's how James and I met and became friends, and pretty quickly as I came in from the outside, I had no aviation experience at all. I was just kind of like, I looked at helicopters and was kind of like, that doesn't look like it should do it. I don't understand how that, like planes, okay, birds, I get it, right? That makes sense. But helicopters, it doesn't make sense. So I just wanted to know. I wanted to understand it. It just sounded like a fun challenge. And I found them and met James and got involved, got my license, bought a 22, and leased it back to that school so that I could also build my hours so that I could get my commercial, and then ended up buying a 66 and leasing that back to the school as well. But in the process of that, really realized that there were corners being cut on safety, on maintenance, on things that you don't want to cut corners on.
Mm-hmm. And there just is, this. I think part of it was there was this success that was starting to develop there, and And to their credit, they worked hard to get in the limelight and get the recognition. But it was, I think, profits over safety.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that led to a few accidents, right?
Well, we tried to
warn them
and work with them and say, hey, like let's do this right, because it was they had the foundation of it was a good thing, and we so it was kind of like let's there were relationships and bridges being burned around the industry because of a lot of these things too, and so we're like let's do these things right. Let us work together. Let's figure this out.
And I was numero uno instructor aside from the guy there, and he was numero uno student. So
and
we
leasing
were
back 2 helicopters.
We
to
were
them
there day one, so we saw the growth. We and I believed in it, and we really wanted to see something good happen here.
And you were both kind of new into aviation and still saw
very
it.
new.
Yeah. So, but the guy that was running it was a little narcissistic and had some issues, and so he just wouldn't change, and so it just got to the point where I told James, I'm like, we need a place. There's nowhere really here at John Wayne Airport in Orange County to have what we want, and
have a community.
Have a community where safety's first, but also it can be fun but still safe. Mm-hmm. And I think there was that trade-off there of this idea of, well, we can do fun, but we're going to give up some of the safety. And one of the challenges with a flight school in general is the margins are low. I mean, it's not a quick make a lot of money kind of business. It's a lot of work, and because helicopters are expensive, and you've try and make it accessible. It's just expensive.
It's big financial commitment. I mean, so even to think $100,000, it just seems like, why would I do that? I mean, granted, you go to colleges and you're still going to spend about $100,000+, if not more. But you don't know that. It's kind of hard to make that relationship.
Yeah. So, I get that, a lot of schools are tempted to cut corners, and the FAA honestly doesn't really regulate schools very much. And so, especially if they're not 142 or,
141.
141, sorry, whatever.
I said yours.
That's your 141. That's your area. Especially, but just a Part 91, right?
Well, yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. A Part 91,
yeah.
School that isn't really, they don't have a lot of regulation on. That was quick. And so it's kind of on the owners to bring that, and a lot of people don't because it costs money and it's time and it's margins. And so we just decided, we were going to do that, and we would always put safety first. And if we needed to, turn a student away because they weren't safe, then we would do that. We would always choose safety and community over profits. Yeah. And
we didn't know much, but we knew that.
That was kind of the thing. And just in general, for whatever reason, at a lot of airports, there's like great community, and at John Wayne, there just wasn't. And so we wanted to help build that. And because of that other school, there was a lot of animosity towards helicopters in particular. And
as there already is. You already have a hard time just in the industry alone.
Yeah.
So we wanted to overcome that. Within 6 months, that other school had several crashes and lost some lives, and which was very unfortunate. And they went out of business. So, which we were happy only because people are safer, and I don't care about competition. Competition's fine, but it just I think safer.
Yeah.
And so that's
and to be able to sleep at night. I mean, I was getting to the point where, I knew things weren't being done right, and I wouldn't let that affect what I did. And thankfully, I felt a lot of the team at the time that we had there, they looked to me like, hey, that's what they're saying. James, what are we going to do? So I kind of felt, that's not a good environment where, management or whatever you want to call it has one thing that they want to accomplish, but the rest of us didn't want to follow that. And so here I am just doing my own thing. And that's kind of where it's like, well, you're already doing this. Like, let's just get away from this. I was like, I don't know how to start a company. Like, he started companies. He already had a company or two.
The other piece for me was my background originally was education. So I taught. I did a master's in education, and then 15 years later, I'm flying and getting educated in this area that I know nothing about, and realizing.
You mean you don't like science?
I don't. Yeah, no. I was like, why are you talking to me about physics? I don't know. You know,
I'm not. I don't know physics.
but you know, it was very interesting. But like, it's hard for me. It was hard for me to learn and realizing, you know, mostly CFIs are taught the information they need to teach. They're not taught educational theory and how to teach, to a degree, a little bit, but not really. And so I'm sitting there going like, man, this would have been way more effective if we did it this way, or if this had been explained that way, or if we prep people here, or if we had these conversations, or just these simple things that just educational theory wise would make it easier. And in an area where it's so critical that people are learning this properly and getting it because it's safety, you know, we need to do a better job of that. And so that was like, I was like, well, I could kind of bring that perspective. And we can kind of take a different approach to some of this. And we're still working on a lot of that stuff and like trying new things and everything. But yeah, it just was an opportunity for us. And we thought, what the heck, let's do it.
Nice.
There we are.
Yeah. So now it's both fun and safe.
That's
Right?
the goal. Yeah.
Okay, but it's not just you two.
No, it's not. No.
It's Brian as well.
Yeah. So we have a third partner, Brian. He's not here. And he's got, you know, other businesses as well. He was a student of yours as well.
Both of them are my students. Yeah.
And
they were
How
the ones
come my
nudging me.
students never asked me to start my own school?
Probably because you had to leave, unfortunately.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I know.
They knew you weren't going to be able to stay that long, and I bet you if you were, though.
So you had a background education.
Mm-hmm.
What was your background, James?
My background was in sales.
Sales.
Yeah.
So you still had a little bit of that.
I
years.
mean, I think the advantage I had was when I started, I wasn't young. Well, I would guess I was young compared to now.
You're right. Yeah.
But I was 29 when the idea popped in my head, and
That's pretty young.
yeah, still. Oh man, that seems so long.
Yeah, that's
so long
very
ago.
young. What the hell's
Yeah.
wrong with you?
I didn't feel young because
Right, when you're 29,
when
you
you're
feel like, oh, I'm
29
behind.
and yeah, and my instructors were like 22, and I was like, what do these guys know, But I saw this early on. Especially when I started working on my CFI, I had a background in sales. I worked for a lot of high-end retail sales jobs like Gucci and Versace, and I think not realizing at the time working in sales and retail, there was a lot of training that went into presenting information and products and things like that. And so when I started my CFI, I kind of was like, okay, this won't be hard. Like I can talk in front of people, and I also had jobs where I had to lead small groups and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I'm comfortable talking in front of people. I don't get too much of a stage fright. And then I just had to find a relate the product, which was a service, which was to learn how to fly, and I just kind of related that to selling a product. And best way to sell a product is being excited about something, believing in that. Like this cup of coffee right here, that's my cup. This is the best cup of coffee ever. You don't have to. In some cases, you don't have to believe that, but you just got to find a way to relate to that. Thankfully, in aviation, I was hooked and with helicopters, and so that was just easy, to just talk about something that I was excited about and that I loved. And I also saw, everyone's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what sector of the industry do you want to get into? And honestly, I didn't know. I think if anything, if I could still go somewhere with that, would be the film side of things. I just think it's cool, and there's a lot of different challenges, and I don't think one shoot is ever going to be the same, but there's a process to that, and but knowing that would be a long time before I could get there, I was like, I enjoy teaching. I like helping people learn this stuff because I found it was challenging for me. I'm not a smart man, but I found it was challenging for me.
It's true, he's not.
I'm not. But I found it was challenging for me, so I wanted to just find a way to make it more relatable and make it somewhat. If I could make myself understand it, then I felt I could do a pretty good job of helping others understand it. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. I just said I'll just teach for a while and just do it well and learn it well, and we'll see where it goes from there.
And that's always the challenge, because finding people who actually enjoy the teaching. So many people just use instruction as a way to build hours and then
Yeah,
move on to
stepping stone.
something else, which is not terrible, but
And it's not for everyone.
and it's but you know, we do want people who are really, they like the teaching, they like doing that, they want to help people and want to get better at that. And not that you can't have other, you know, career goals and that type of thing, but it's hard to find people who are just not like, I'm just going to be here until I build my hours and then I'm out.
Yeah,
Because
and they learn exactly the minimum of what they need to learn.
Exactly.
And they know how to explain it one way, not for everyone.
Well, it's such a backwards system, right? Like, you would think that instruction, somebody told me that, and I don't know if this is true, but somebody told me that in Canada it's the opposite. Like, instructors are like the thing that you
Do later on in your
you
career.
do later on in your career.
Okay.
And here it's like, I got my CFI and I'm instructing the next week. That just, I'm like, you're the least experienced person available and you're teaching people. I don't, you know, I mean, most of the CFIs we get, we're like, okay, you know, James kind of evaluates and here's areas we need to work on before you're going to be ready to teach. And here's areas you can teach, but these other things you're not ready to do yet. And we're very intentional about that because these should be the, you know, they should be the students should be
Kids.
Sorry, my teaching background. The students should be getting the best. You know, you want them to have the best instruction, not just the like, hey, I just learned to do this. And so it's a tough, in the States at least, it's a tough thing because it is a lot of people coming and they just got their CFI and they're excited and like, hey, let's go do this. And you're like, not yet.
Especially here
to
in,
that
like,
point too, like you came from a good school, right? Mauna Loa.
Yeah.
We love Mauna Loa. Great students that come from there. How did you feel when you first started teaching? Did you really feel like you knew it, or did you learn a lot as you
I
started
learned
teaching
so
with them?
much. That's how you learn.
Yeah.
I believe, because you have so many different people going through flight school.
Sure.
Like my youngest student was 12 at the
Oh
time.
my gosh.
Yeah. And then I had people that were, 60.
Yeah.
And they have so different experiences that they learn so differently.
Yeah.
And you have to, if I can't explain the physics to to a 12-year-old, then I don't really understand it myself.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, so
And I think that's one thing I enjoy, and I've taught a lot of instructors, and it's not just here's the information, memorize it, be able to just regurgitate it. It's okay, let's break that information down into pieces and show it to me one way, and now we're going to try to have you teach it a different way too, because if you're just speaking to yourself all the time and you get it in your mind, well, that's great, but someone else isn't going to quite get it. And I had many of those challenges with this guy over here, you know?
And new people are going to bring in new questions that you never even thought about.
Yeah.
And yeah, same thing with him. Like, he would ask me lots of, I'm like, ooh, shoot, I don't really know that answer.
Yeah.
But let's figure that out, or I'll come back to you with that later. And, looking, fast forwarding to now, I probably teach differently than I taught earlier, just because I've learned through the years of how to navigate through. And I kind of often joke when even just on the flight side of things, when I'm teaching autos to people, I kind of joke and I said, I just saved, maybe one or two flights. I just saved you $2,500. Like, what are you talking about? I just spent $1,000. I'm like, yeah, well, if you met me back when I was, a $500 pilot, it would have cost you about $2,500 more than it does now. And that's because I've just learned how to refine that process.
So I got screwed, is what you're telling me. I want some money back, man.
You're getting it back. Don't worry.
So how come you named it Rogue?
Well, I had my company Rogue Creatives, which is a creative agency.
Where we're sitting today.
Where we are, here. This is our building, Rogue Collective. But Rogue was my dog. She was just the best little French bulldog in the world, and I wanted to make sure she could live forever, and so we just started naming companies after her. And now she's got 4.
She has a whole empire.
She has a whole empire. She passed away last year, sad, about a year ago. But it was just, honestly, part of it was there's two parts to it. One was the dog, and she was just the most kind of chill, won everybody over.
She used to fly with us.
She used to fly with us.
Yeah, we used to bring her along, little earmuffs. And she would just sit in the back, and sometimes we're flying, we're like,
Didn't you
what's
make
that
like a
noise?
seat for her?
Yeah, she had a little seat
yeah.
in the back of
Yeah.
the 66.
And sometimes she
fly
just
her all over the country.
fall
It's
asleep,
great.
and we hear her snoring in the back. We're like,
Oh, yeah.
we're like, what's going on with the helicopter? What is that? Is
And
it
it's like just her going. Yeah. So there was that aspect of like I just her personality. I'm like, that's what I want my companies to be. Like. She just won people over and was friendly and people, even people who were like, I'm not a dog person, but I like that dog. But then the other part of it, for us was when we were talking about Rogue Aviation, was going like, it's really sort of a sad state when in the aviation, in helicopters in particular, going rogue is putting safety first.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because so many places don't do that and putting safety over profits. And that actually is making a rogue kind of decision. And so for us, it was kind of also that reminder of that, that we're not going rogue as in like abandoning the rules or safety, or we're actually going rogue by like putting some boundaries on ourselves that the FAA or other people haven't put on us, honestly, and holding ourselves to a higher standard than other people are holding us to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which we almost thought about changing that name because we were kind of concerned, like maybe a certain generation would have more of that connotation of, they're just going
opposite,
rogue
yeah.
and doing. But we realized we'd probably have to share that story a little bit more. But I find we didn't have to do
No.
it too much. I think people.
I think the
just
branding
saw.
with the dog softens it a little bit
Yeah.
too.
I had no idea.
I
then.
certainly fell for it when I
Yeah.
applied for a job there.
I mean, I had no idea. I mean, even to this day, so many people are like, "That's a French bulldog," and how many Frenchie lovers are out there? I mean, they're
Yeah.
such. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen them as puppies? I mean, they're just the
adorable.
tiniest little things. And I mean, I got the hold one, not your recent,
Yeah, we got a new one.
got a
She's
new one.
insane.
but they were like, it was like the size of this mic. It just fit in my hand, and they're so cute.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, and especially, I mean, like in Southern California, where it's so congested,
It
and so
is.
much traffic, and still there are companies out there that still don't really think about safety.
Well, not only companies. I mean, the state of the way things are set up. Anyone could at a random airport, could just be like, I know that there's, especially at smaller airports, there's just random CFIs that are there saying like, hey, I'll teach you to fly. They don't have a company. They don't have any organization.
They don't have a syllabus.
It's just a
don't have-
guy.
Yeah.
And doing that around, in general, just seems dangerous. But then, especially like you said, in this area where it's congested, where I learned to fly here. I learned to fly at John Wayne and Long Beach, and so that's all I knew. I didn't realize how challenging this area is compared to others until I started flying outside this area and flying across the country and whatnot, and suddenly realizing like, oh my gosh, like, and other people would come here and be like, people with way more hours than me, but they'd never been here, and they go up and, oh my gosh, they're, and scared, like, wait, how do I handle this? There's so much going on, and for me, it was like, this is just what it is. I don't know. This is all I knew. The only thing that looked scarier on the charts to me was San Diego because of all the overlapping stuff. But even that now is just like, yeah, you just kind of go through, you figure it out.
They're actually really chill down there.
They're really chill down there, which is shocking because if you look at the, and it's Bravo and it's all things that you think is going to be scary. But yeah, I mean, it really, people need to be holding instructors to a higher standard and holding schools to a higher standard, because we are training people who are taking machines and
That
putting
weren't
them,
designed to fly.
that are fighting physics at every every way,
shaking themselves apart
and putting them above the public. And you need people who are well trained to do that. Helicopters are fun. They should be fun. They let you do things that you cannot do in fixed wing. It's an amazing, awesome thing, but it's also an amazing, awesome responsibility. And you just go on some of the Facebook forums for helicopter pilots, and you'll see a lot of people do not take that responsibility seriously at all. Like they just think, nah, it's fine, just do whatever, and and you're just like, dude, this is how people die.
We're not talking about the forums themselves, but like the videos and stuff that you see them post in those forums of people doing just.
Well, and some of the responses to that, where some people are like, that's insane. I can't believe they would do that. That's so unsafe. And then other people are like, if you can live through it, you can do it.
Yeah.
Like, just let them,
Yeah,
whatever. I did that last week. It's fine. And I'm like, dude, that's not fine. Like, why take that risk? You're not just putting yourself at risk. You're putting other people at risk, and you're putting the perception of our industry at risk. And there is this perception, specifically with Robinson helicopters, of an unsafe kind of environment. But the reality is, the vast majority of mistakes, fatal mistakes, and incidents across the board, whether it's Robinson or not, are pilot error. It's training. It's people making poor decisions. It's the chain of decision making where they're not thinking it through, and it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's a touchy subject, of course, but I mean, how often, and just recently again, do we keep hearing of people going to fly at night in poor visibility or zero lighting, over water, over deserts, in bad weather, and they're doing that. And I guarantee you, most of these people say, I would never do that, until they do it once. Like, oh, yeah, I got through that. I got this really sophisticated GPS. I don't care if I'm IFR current or not. Like, I know how to work this system. I'm not calling any names out by any means, but this just happens all the time. And it's frustrating to me to just keep seeing that happen. I'm like, you probably just said that, 6 months ago, or talked about that to someone, said you wouldn't do that. And unfortunately, it just keeps happening. And here we are.
I mean, and you can cut this out if you don't want, but 4 years ago, I was sitting at the airport one morning with a crew of people to go do a flight, and it was very overcast.
It was going to be a skydive flight.
Yeah, it was going to be a skydive flight, waiting to see if it was going to burn off. And I had all these skydivers in their gear ready to go, and I'm just going, like, technically, yeah, we're right above the minimum, like, but nothing else around here. Like, every other airport in the area is IFR. No, we're not going anywhere. And we sat there ended up almost 3 hours waiting just to see if it was burn off. It never did. Mm-hmm. And I see this helicopter take off at the other end of the field and fly away. I had no idea. I'm just like, where does that guy think he's going? Mm-hmm. And I get home and hear the news that it was Kobe.
Oh, wow.
And I had no idea who that was. I didn't know what it was, but I'm sitting there going, like, what? Who is this? Who would take off in this? Because I know that ship had IFR capabilities, but I also know that the company that runs it doesn't do IFR.
Yeah.
So what is going on? And I just thought, well, that's insane. And I had no idea what.
I mean, they may have done it. We just don't know if that was an IFR sanctioned flight.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is, are we current in it? And
yeah, there's all the things, but it was just like one of those where it was like, I mean, for me, this is a no-go. There's, would the tower let me take off? Yeah, because it was just above the minimums. Mm-hmm. But every other airport in the area was IFR, and why? I'm just not even going to touch that. Like,
yeah.
And even before that, and we knew that happened, I had an instructor, John, who and he was doing kind of a long adventure flying with a client that wanted to just go out for a few days. And, I texted him and said, hey, weather's really bad out here. I know you're supposed to come back today, but stay away. Just spend another night. And I think they were in Vegas at this point. Mm-hmm. And I said, just don't come out. And then shortly later, there we go, Kobe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I don't bring that up too
often.
Well, too often. I don't bring it up to kind of like capitalize on the publicity of all that craziness, but it's just another example. Mm-hmm. And and of course it people lost lives. It damaged the reputation of our industry. There's so many repercussions when we make these decisions. It's not just about you. It's not just about me. There's so much to consider, and taking the time to make those safe decisions. If we can do it safely, then we can go and have a lot of fun.
And it's not just about the money either,
or
the client's need.
Yeah, because they don't know.
Right.
I mean,
they're trusting
clients,
us,
and they
and not to mention the general public who were putting these machines above their heads. They're trusting us. Before I flew, I just assume I see a helicopter fly overhead. These people that obviously somebody who's really well trained and competent is doing that because I don't know. and then find out that, well, yeah, maybe not all the time.
Yeah. I actually had, when I was flying on Kauai, bad weather was coming in. I had just started my helicopter and I was about to take off, and I saw how the weather came in faster than expected. And my coworker had gone up just a few minutes prior, and he texted me and he said, "Shut down."
Yeah.
Like, I'm turning around. And so I told my passengers, I was like, "No, we're not going to go. The weather is too bad. You're going to come back another day." And they asked me, they were super sad about it.
Yeah.
They went to the office and because they saw all the other helicopters take off,
Mm.
because they didn't know that bad weather was coming in so fast. And they called the office and they said, "Do you have any more experienced pilot that can take us up?"
Wow. But that's the thing. I mean, the general public, even, after the Kobe thing or whenever there's these things, that one just the general public knew more about because it was
Such a
somebody
high
famous.
profile, yeah.
But the questions that I got just reminded me constantly how little the average person knows about how our air systems work, our airspace and tower control, all that stuff. And there was opportunities to educate, but what it comes down to is people who don't know, they just trust that, hey, these guys have it down and they know what they're doing, and if they can't fly it, then I'm sure there's somebody more experienced, instead of somebody going like, no, actually that's not safe. I don't care if you have 20,000 hours or 100 hours. If you have 100 hours, it's really not safe.
Yeah.
But if you have 20,000, that's just not safe. And even if it's something where, you could with passengers, why would you ever risk that? Like, there's just too many things. And I've called no-go on enough flights now, personally and professionally, that you have to get comfortable doing that. You have to get in a headspace where you're gonna let people down. They're gonna be disappointed, and you can, I always warn people up front too. Like, somebody books something or calls me or
wants to go
friend,
Catalina.
Want to go to Catalina, like friends are in town or whatever, and I tell them, like, I mean, I took a friend to lunch one day, and we landed at Hawthorne, and the second we landed, all of a sudden it just came in and went IFR like that, and did not see that coming. And we were stuck there for 7 hours. Yeah. Having lunch at Eureka for 7 hours,
I mean, it's good food. But
it was good food.
Yeah,
it wasn't
yummy.
that good, though. But and I just go, no. And even when it went VFR again, I was like, not yet. No, not yet. Like, because I want to be not just comfortable. I want to be very comfortable. Like, why take the risk?
Yeah. Rogue has always stuck out to me because I had some not so good experience before too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember when I came to Rogue the first time, and James took me out for breakfast at Big Bear. You and John were flying there. You were going to fly the 66, and I got to tag along.
Yeah.
Nice.
And get to know the crew. And so I really like how you implement the fun in it.
Yeah.
Like, we are going on training because we want to practice a little bit higher DA, and we want to practice on the 66 and all that.
And part of that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. Just let me have this. Part of that probably comes from me as well, because I was so disgusted is so much of a stronger word than I mean. Just perplexed at how I was training, and I'm asking James and the other instructors at the other place that we were at, and like, okay, how often do you actually get to just go fly? And they're like, oh, never.
Yeah, you're correct in that statement.
Yeah,
we just fly for work.
They
We don't
all
fly for
just
fun.
fly for work, and I'm like, but this is one of the coolest things in the world, and you only do it for work. So when we started Rogue Aviation, I said no, and even when we got the when we got the 66, and we were at the other school, even the only other person there that was insurance would sign off to fly it was the guy who was running the company, because he had 66 time. And so we wanted to get James on there, and he had to get 30 hours,
25
hours, something like that. And so I just was like, well, I need more hours. So James and I was signed off because I owned it and I had done this cross country flight and gotten my 25 hours and whatever. And so I just, like, anytime I wanted to go fly somewhere, I'd be like, call James and we'd go fly to Havasu or fly to Vegas or go fly to here, fly to there to help build his hours. And also because I'm like, you're my friend now. And it sucks that you never get to just go have fun in the helicopter. Like, that's ridiculous. So
not to say I didn't have fun. I enjoyed.
Oh, of course, yes, but
the
I mean,
fun of teaching. But yeah, I didn't just get to go casually fly.
I mean,
and that's such a big part of it.
Yeah,
Well,
we took our wives and like landed, up in the mountains and did a picnic one time, and like stuff like that. Like you just. This is what we can do. This is the cool part, and we can do it well. We can do it safely.
It was that flight that's why I ended up having a kid too. But
because
what happened on that flight, man?
That flight led to.
What were you doing in the back?
That flight led to. I wanted a dog again.
I need a deep cleaning on the
you
helicopter.
wanted a dog and you got a baby.
I wanted a dog, but my wife, or I guess she was my wife at the time. She didn't really want. She didn't really want a dog, but it was Rogue.
Oh, we brought Rogue.
I brought Rogue, and Rogue was sitting between, and she loved having Rogue. And while she was, we went on a picnic, then we stayed at your place out in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And Rogue was with us the whole time, and
Rogue got to experience a whole lot.
and she saw this dog on Instagram of a friend of a friend that was trying to put up for adoption and find a home, and she's like, oh my God, I love this dog, and she was kind of like, okay, I can see this, having the dog, and
Because of Rogue.
Yeah. And then of course when we showed the dog to her father was like, oh yeah, I love you guys having a dog, and he's like, because now that you have a dog, you're gonna have kids, and shortly thereafterwards we ended up having kids.
That's true. Yeah.
Which led to 6 months later he had kids. And,
Now
here we are.
Now there's so many kids.
It's all Rogue's fault.
But yeah, I mean, I wanted, when we started Rogue Aviation, and I told James, I'm like, we need to build in opportunities for the staff to get to fly for fun and enjoy. Remember why they got into flying helicopters is not just to teach. I love that they love to teach, but this is fun. Like, we need to look for those opportunities, and we need to invest in their training as well and continual development. So
and bringing that to the training is to make training fun. I would say a lot of our clients here in Orange County, students, they're not really thinking of this as a career.
Right.
So what are they going to do with it? They're not going to just go back and forth from John Wayne to Long Beach. They want to go have fun. So why not let's incorporate the fun and start teaching them all these areas
and
that
how
we
to
can
do it
double up
safely.
and how to do it safely and expose them to different airports. And we all know here in SoCal, there's tons of great restaurants all throughout the area that you can fly to and take your friends and have a delicious dinner and
pie places.
Get a pie.
Or get a pie.
Whatever.
So how many people have you working for you now?
You want to answer that one too?
I don't know. You tell me.
We have in total, 4 instructors, an operation manager, and then myself. I'm the floater, the 5th instructor.
Yeah. And you get to do a lot of full downs too, right?
I do. They're fun.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was something. Again, I felt I wasn't given the opportunity to work and develop in myself, and it is a very. I understand now why people get concerned, and it's the same concern.
And
I
maybe
share.
just to tell people who don't know what a full down is.
Full down. Well, you can go to my Instagram at HeliGuy. That's the best way I can describe it. And there's a cool little video of us doing a full down with our friend Micah Muzio. Check him out too. It's basically bringing the helicopter all the way to the ground, touching the skids in an auto rotation without a power recovery. Typically, we teach those, just at the very end. The engine's never really off. We never fully kill it. It's just at idle, and we turn the engine on. Everything recovers quite quickly. In this scenario, we just keep it in idle so we can just completely touch the skids to the ground. It's a very undertrained skill set, I would say. I mean, not to say a lot of people aren't training it, because they are. You just sometimes have to wait a lot longer before you get those opportunities. It gets the smaller the aircraft, the more tricky it becomes, especially on lower inertia systems. But it's one of those skills that I think, I personally like to demonstrate that to as many students as I can in any opportunity. A, because I just like doing it, but B, it's important, right? Like when was the first time you experienced a full down?
Back home in Sweden.
Okay, you got it kind of early,
I had
right?
an instructor who did a lot of full downs too.
Okay,
Oh, good.
How far into your training were you?
Ooh, well, I did like all my training,
So this is all
it's
your
different.
EASA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was probably
maybe
commercial-ish?
Yeah, commercial. Maybe 80 hours in, so pretty early.
Oh, wow, you got it early.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I like doing it early, because if you see it early, at least now every time you're doing even just a power recovery, you kind of have that connection, like, oh, okay, that's where that happened. I would say through experience and talking to people, most people don't see that really, and myself didn't see that until I did my CFI, because
which is like 200 hours.
Yeah, you're just almost at 200 hours, and now there's this kind of new part of the auto that you're having to do, and it's a very particular time. And it all starts from the entry. You have to set up the entry well and maintain that glide. So there's a lot coming up to that point that, if you recover high, well, that's not good, because if you recover high when you don't have an engine, well, that's not going to help you out at the end. So to really try to keep that whole profile the same all the way down, and to just understand what that's going to be like when it happens really early on, I think will then help that CFI level student to really start making a lot of those connections earlier. And I want them to start having those connections before then.
Well, and the hard part about it, of course, is, I mean, if you really had an engine out, you're doing a full down.
Yeah.
So you know, in a way, you're like, well, everyone should be doing these, because that's what you're going to have to do if we're practicing it and practicing it and practicing it, and we're not teaching you actually how to finish the thing out. You still have a probably greater chance of survival, but the helicopter in one piece, maybe not so much. And so, but it's finding those balances of like, okay, how much risk do we take in the training to prevent the risk later on? And that's why aviation, especially with helicopters, is such a complicated arena. It's where they used to teach zero G pullovers and pushovers. And they don't do that anymore because
pullover's a sweater.
Yeah, pullover's a sweater, right? I would do a pushover while I was putting on a pullover. Sweater. That's what actually caused it. No, they would teach those because it was and then they realized, nope, that's too dangerous to actually teach.
Yeah.
And so now it's prohibited. But it's this constant tension of like, where do we draw that line?
Yeah.
And
I think part of the issue we're seeing now is there's a lot of concern of doing these things, and not just in that maneuver. I could list a few other maneuvers that the industry as a whole kind of stays away. And part of it is you don't have enough experienced pilots. They're even at the instructor level, and they're not experienced because they're not being taught those things. So the talent pool, if you will, is getting highly diluted. But if you really started incorporating that stuff a lot earlier, and just like any issue or problem, how do we fix it? With training, right? How do we make it better? By doing it. And we're a due type of skill set. You have to practice it. Even if you've been shown it and demonstrate it, that's all great, but you got to have the opportunity to practice that. And even if you're, as a flight school and you're like, hey, this is my one helicopter, I don't want to damage it, that's fine. I totally get that. I don't want to damage my helicopters either. Am I putting a little bit more wear in them? Yeah. But, I think there's a much larger picture here, and I think the extra wear and tear and cost that we have, it's contributing to, a much greater opportunity and much, I think, broader, way that the next generation pilots can hopefully start getting that sooner. And then I would hope to see in the future, I'm not the only one in the area doing full downs. I mean, right now, one of the only people
you
do
have
it.
people from like Oregon and all over.
Yeah, Oregon and Vegas. And,
People come in just
they
to
come
have
here just
James
to
do those because it's hard to find people who will train you on that.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, thank you. I appreciate the support, and but I would, sometimes it's tough because I can't take it all. Just wearing as many hats and I want to do all of it. For everybody. So anyone that's listening, just give me a good heads up, and and usually what I recommend is don't just put yourself in a position where you got, hey, I got a day. Like you can get it, you can kind of learn it in a day, which is honestly how I had to learn it. And by no means I was like, I got to go do this for my check ride. Like, are you serious? Like I had one day and I got to feel it maybe twice. And I could totally feel my instructor helping me there. That was great. And I did it. But, I'd rather a student walk away knowing like, okay, like I feel it. I understand it. I get it. So now, even if I'm just working on power recoveries, I get it, and I know when to do it. And I always, at this point, I just assume power recovery or not that this could be a full down. So I want the training and I want the profile of the auto to always be set up. If we need to do that full down, I have that option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, just realistically, like repetition brings familiarity, and familiarity brings confidence.
Yeah,
and not arrogant confidence, but actual confidence of like, okay, I feel like I can do this. And if you're trying to like cram it into a day and just, you're not, you may know it, but you don't know it. You're not confident in it. We want people who are like, no, I can handle that situation.
And I'm finding people are becoming more receptive to that. They're like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I don't, what, I'll wait on booking my check ride. Cause I do want to learn that. Like, I want to know I can do it later on. And that's a skill set I'm going to be able to take away later in my career. And when, it doesn't really change from helicopter to helicopter. In fact, honestly, if you can, like they always say, if you can do it in R22, you can do anything else. And it really is true. Like you go into a 44, a 66, a 505, a 109, it all kind of feels the same.
Well, they start getting easier the bigger they get.
They are easier. They just kind of float in there.
Yeah.
And,
I always say in the 66, hover auto is an easier way to land than just landing.
Kind of is.
You just hover
And the
out
full
of
down is.
I mean, it
honestly,
really is like you just float to it. That's so much easier. Like just do that every time.
No, but talking about like safety and all that, like I think that's how the mindset changes also when you start getting more experienced, because a lot of I remember when I was a student, I read about all these accidents or everything that can happen, and I'm like, yeah, that's for those people that it happened. It wouldn't happen to me,
Sure.
But it's not a matter of really if something's gonna happen, but it's more of a when.
It will if you don't think that way.
Yeah, something will happen.
I think the eye-opening moment for me, everybody has their moments, right? And for me, it was sitting at the safety course at Robinson, and Bob Muse, who was teaching the 66 course, starts reviewing some accidents, and he's like, and that guy was sat right there.
Yeah.
In this class.
Yeah.
And he's like, almost every time an incident comes up, I can tell you where they were sitting in this course.
Yeah.
And I can also tell you usually which people it might be in this. Like if I looked at this group, I could tell you which, because they're the ones not paying attention. They're the ones that are going like, ugh, I'm just here because I have to for insurance, and not actually taking the opportunity to learn. And I was like, oh, I don't want that to be me. Yeah. I don't want to be the
Where
one
are
that
you sitting?
I don't want to be the one that 2 years from now or
Where
10
did you
years from
usually
now,
sit?
he's like, oh, there's the accident report with Matt, and he was sitting right there. Like, I'm not going to be that guy. And it just made, for me, whatever reason, that made it real. And personal, and like, oh, that could be me. I'm not going to let that be me. I've made mistakes. I always, James knows, he's gotten phone calls from me from most random places where I'm like, holy crap, dude, I landed here. I don't have enough fuel to get anywhere else. What do I do? Or, whatever it might be. And because I just immediately own the mistake and go, I screwed this up. I didn't plan properly. I'm in this situation. I'm not going to try and solve it myself. I'm going to use the resources that I have, and I'm going to learn from it. And then afterwards, okay, what did I do, and what will I never do again? And, they were innocent things, and now, but it's caused me to start adding different rules for myself of, okay, now I will never, if I have the chance to top off fuel at an airport, I'm not going to go, well, I only need this much to get to there and the fuel's cheaper there, so I'll just take that here and then fill up there. No. Like,
because it costs you a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, well, it could have cost me my life. I mean, and there's just all those types of things that you learn along the way. We're all going to do those things. We're all going to learn those things, but you got to own it and be open to it and be humble about it and go, yeah, I screwed up. Okay, help. Like, let's learn from this.
Yeah.
And then share it with other people too, so that they can learn from your mistakes. There's embarrassing, stupid things, but if I can share those, it prevents other people from making those same embarrassing, stupid mistakes that, fortunately for me, I made my way out of.
Yeah.
We've all had those. We've all had that moment where the cloud suddenly is there, or the fog suddenly comes, or whatever it is, and we've made it out, and you go, okay, what would I do? How would I avoid that in the future? How do I make sure that doesn't happen? And then how do I share that with other pilots I know so that they can learn from it as well?
And talking about
and to really learn from your mistake.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that does happen, and they get it starts creating a false sense of security when they get out of it, so they're okay letting it kind of happen again, and then maybe that next time was a little bit different and more intense, and then they couldn't get out of it. I mean, I still use that same example. I don't teach as much primary ground anymore, but I use that same story all the time when I start doing field planning.
Yeah.
I share his mistake. It was a good mistake,
and it's fine.
It was a great mistake.
I'm great with that.
It's he learned from it, and now
and
other
I think
people can
it's
learn.
so important also to owning up to your mistakes, because a lot of places out there, when we're talking about non-safe environments, I know that a lot of companies are like, an overspeed, we would fire you straight away.
Right.
Which is also like, okay, so your new instructors would never own up to their own mistakes.
Right.
And they would put other people to danger.
Yeah. And that's what was happening at the school they were at. In fact, even when it was the one that we decided to start Rogue because of, there was a scenario where the student did fess up, which I'm really glad, but the company still tried to hide the fact that they did the inspection on the overspeed. And we all knew what to look for, and they still flat out said, you don't know what you're talking about.
And there's a difference between making, and this is true in any industry, there's a difference between making, innocent mistakes where you genuinely like, oh, I should have done that, and just people who are being reckless. You know what I mean? Like that we have no tolerance for.
So talking about like wearing many hats, we haven't really talked about your job at Robinson.
Okay.
So how did you land that? And what are you doing?
How did I land that? Well, it was kind of, through getting to know Bob, Matt actually met Bob before I did.
Bob Muse, who runs the safety course
now. And Robinson's safety course is, Robinson is the manufacturer of the helicopter.
That most of us fly and learn in,
yeah.
And they're local here. So their whole operation is out of Torrance Airport.
So, while we were at this other company, I've always wanted to be part of that team. My chief pilot at the time at my school, he was a safety course pilot, and you could see that in our training. At the school I was at, I was like, I don't think I have a chance, because the school didn't have a great reputation, or at that point it was having a hard time. And, I kind of thought that kind of limited me. So as soon as we started Rogue, I forget how that conversation started, but basically Matt was like, hey, we're going to go talk to Bob Muse. And he may not remember this, but, he was always like, how come you never applied? And I was like, I didn't know there was an opening. Like, how come it's not advertised? Or how do we know when to apply? And it's like, oh, yeah, good point. Yeah. You need to go talk to Tim Tucker, And so he set up an interview with Tim Tucker. Fortunately, when Tim reached out, I was sick as a dog and I couldn't go to an interview, but got there. And, I mean, everyone, probably knows who Tim Tucker is. I mean, he's a legend in our industry. And, I had my meeting with Tim Tucker, and it was kind of so you want to be part of the team, and I was like, yeah, of course I want to be part of the team. And it's been great, get to know, I mean, most of us safety pilots there, we work for other companies, have our companies. I mean, we're technically competitors, but when we go there, we're just pilots, instructors that love doing
Coworkers
that stuff.
in the
Coworkers
sky.
in the sky. Yeah. It's a great team. I am one of the newer guy. I guess not as new anymore. I've been there about. I think I'm working on my 8th year there now.
Oh wow.
I know it's crazy how fast that's gone, but I still feel like the new guy.
To wrap this up, maybe where can we? What's the best way to find you on social media?
Rogue Aviation.
Yeah, at Rogue Aviation on pretty much
Instagram.
all the socials.
Yeah,
and
all
then
channels.
flyrogue.com is the website. Somebody else bought rogueaviation.com and keeps redirecting it to
really?
places
Yeah,
that they think are funny.
That happened day one when we left. So
Was it the person who was running that other flight school? We'll never know. Yes, it was.
Really?
yeah, we couldn't buy Rogue Aviation. What is it? What did it direct to? I mean,
it changes every
it changes.
few months.
At one point, it went to like a porn site.
Yeah,
Like,
he has fun with it.
I mean, clever.
It was
I found it humorous.
It went to like a gay conversion therapy site. It went to it's just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So
But
flyrogue.com.
Yeah.
And and then if you're in the LA area or Orange County area ever, come and visit us. We love, like, community is really important to us. Flying is fun, meeting other pilots is fun. Heli Expo for us is this obviously it's good for business and stuff, but it's fun to see what the industry's doing and meet other pilots and hear other people's experiences and learn from. It's just a cool thing. The helicopter community across the world is very small. And
tiny.
So if you're an a-hole to people, it gets around real fast, but but you can also make friends real fast. And
You're a good example of that.
Yeah.
Of making. I mean, everyone. You've been in this industry here in the States. Well,
4
we
years.
wish you could stay 4 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't believe how many people and hey, I just want. Oh no, I already know them. I'm doing a podcast. Like, how did you meet them? When like that's I think most of the people in our industry, and mostly men, they lack that, and they need to get out and just be personable. You're cool. You fly a helicopter, but that's not just all the cool factor. Like, just be personable. Get to know
That's a
people.
kind of big deal.
Yeah. The importance of networking positively in this industry cannot be overstated.
I remember one thing we forgot to mention.
What's that?
Well, I never heard your night voice.
Oh, so the first time I did a night flight, James was my instructor, and I'd been flying with him for months. And we get up in the air, and we're going through Riverside. I remember exactly where we were. And he goes to make his call, and we had taken off. It was still a little light out, but now it's completely dark. And this transformation happened, and all of a sudden he's like, "This is helicopter 2476 Foxtrot coming through." And I'm like, what the hell just happened, man? He turned into like he was doing love songs on the coast, like on the radio or something.
Helicopter 2476 Foxtrot.
Yeah, I
We're
was like,
traveling down the 91 freeway at 2,000 feet.
And I'm like, what? And he's like, what? And I'm like, you just completely changed your voice like you're hosting a Love Songs radio show. And he's like, no, I didn't. No, you totally, it's just automatically happens. And he does.
I don't know. At night just made me relaxed and maybe a little focused because I couldn't see anything.
And then I was disappointed that a song didn't get played afterwards.
Well, now we play music.
Right, that's
Sometimes
true. Yeah.
We couldn't in 76 Foxtrot.
That's true.
I mean,
I could have done my voice. Helicopter 2476 Foxtrot.
Now we're going to get sued. She's going to
Okay.
get sued.
oh no, you just edited that.
And that's the Mickey voice.
Oh, do you want? No, that's
No,
Elmo.
That's Elmo.
Elmo. Sorry.
That's Elmo.
Sorry.
Mickey.
I can't do Mickey.
I do Mickey.
Do Mickey.
Oh boy, here we are talking about helicopters again.
That's pretty good, Mickey.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that fits right in now when we're going to head over to Anaheim and right next to Disneyland.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wave hi to Mickey. Hello.
Well, thank you for coming. And
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Yeah, it was. Well,
Well-
thank you.
Thanks.
Let's clap.
Oh wait.
That's what we do in aviation, right? At the end, you clap and you land.
All right.